Hey, you geeks! Episode 4 marks the midpoint of Season 1, placing all of the pieces on our board to collide in the finale. The Great Wave had some high points and some cringe points.
There's a tempest in me!
But overall, it's still good, bordering exciting as we meet this season's big bad, Adar, raising today's driving question: who is Adar? In addition to my normal spoilerific breakdown of characters, world building, and plot, which we are going to do backwards. Adar, the mystery man of the hour. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Adar is not Quenya for father, despite Google's insistence that it is. But it is Sindarin for father. As Tolkien explained in the Silmarillion and the appendices, when the Noldor went to Valar, they picked up Quenya. The elves who remained in Middle-earth continued to speak Common Eldarin until it evolved into Sindarin, what we know today as Common Elvish. This split is what shifted the D sound to a T sound in the word for father. Now that I think of it, it was also used in the Jackson films. Ada is, of course, the diminutive of the formal Adar. We have some clues to Adar's true identity. He was alive when Beleriand still existed.
I went down that river once.
Some think he could be Eol, the dark elf who was Sindarin back in the First Age. Known for being pale with dark hair, Eol is a good guess, but the problem is he is super dead as he was cast over a large cliff for killing his wife while trying to kill his son Maglor. Maglor is also known for being pale with dark hair and for being super dead, killed by Tuar during the fall of Gondolin, falling to his death into a city aflame. While it is possible the show could resurrect these villains of old, after all, a parent falling to one's death is one of the easiest ways in fiction to fake a death. But the show need not look back that far, when the Noldor elf Maglor still remains alive. Maglor appears in the Silmarillion. He is a son of Fëanor, and he is said to have retrieved a Silmaril, only to have it burn him due to the evil things he'd done to try and get it. Unlike the other candidates, he may have already appeared in this season's first episode, and therefore is actually tied to the narrative. Perhaps this is why Adar has burn scars on one side of his face and why one hand is gauntleted. However, if they are using that bit of lore, the show missed a great foreshadowing opportunity with exposition fairy Celebrimbor when he spoke of Morgoth and the Silmarils.
They say that Morgoth found the Silmarils so beautiful.
Morgoth was also burned by the Silmarils for his evil deeds. Until this episode, I wouldn't have thought the show had rights for that. But as we discuss later, they've got far more rights to things than they've let on. Adar's physical resemblance to Gil-galad further supports the theory that he is one of the Noldor. And this makes the most sense, narratively speaking. He could serve as a foil to Galadriel in the show, an elf driven by obsession, who refused the gift of the Valar to become exactly what he had set out to destroy. That has already been foreshadowed.
Or the same wind that seeks to blow out a fire may also cause its spread.
It would be a sweet, sweet day to see Galadriel realize this, since halfway through the season, she is just starting to see the error in her ways. Maybe. The last theory for Adar's true identity is the elf father of orc kind.
Why do the orcs call you father?
Which would make him far older than Maglor, since orcs were, according to the Silmarillion, first created in the time of the lamps, which is centuries before the time of the trees and the beginning of the Sindarin language.
They were elves once, taken by the dark powers, tortured and mutilated.
And the actual last option is that he is in fact Sauron, but does anyone actually believe that? Let me know down in the comments. I'm not quite sure who he is, but for the first time I'm genuinely curious about him. For so long I've thought of him as merely the placeholder villain for the first season, someone the heroes can easily vanquish and feel accomplished. Yet Adar doesn't regard himself as a placeholder villain. He seeks to be a god.
I am no god. At least, not yet.
And that is where I believe he gets his name. For Eru Iluvatar, that is the one father of all, is the supreme deity of Middle-earth. And Adar, a mere elf, seems to want to rival him? That sounds like a brilliant idea.
Drop us a line. Let us know how it all turns out.
The show is promising to explore this further, and I am here for that exploration. As this episode used the idea of father figures to connect our disparate storylines in new and interesting ways. Let's start with the most spectacular builders of the world. I did not think they would dive so deeply into Elrond's past.
My father single-handedly sailed to Valinor.
But this is essential world building for the end game of The Rings of Power and, spoilers, Numenor's End. This exposition is first, of course, unceremoniously dropped by Celebrimbor.
For a moment standing there, you were the very image of your father.
I want to give them a little slack for the awkwardness of these conversations. Some of it, I think, is supposed to be awkward.
I'd forgotten that until this moment. Isn't that odd?
The other reason I think these scenes are so stilted is because I think they were filmed in 2020 or early 2021. Both in Eregion and Moria, we get lots of scenes with just the two main characters on screen. Celebrimbor and Elrond are staring out a window at the tower being built by what is clearly CGI, much as Lord Egelmire of the Wheel of Time had to shoot Trollocs out a window. Then in Moria, the children's clapping game is crucial to the plot.
Rich crone, kiss the stone, polish your gems and gold.
Yet they couldn't show the children on screen because pandemic? In light of that, these scenes are quite brilliant, like having Durin and Disa's conversation on a walkway where they could edit background characters in later, making the city still feel alive, and giving Elrond a chance to use his elf eyes.
The old mine below the Mirror.
Though once I noted the pandemic precautions, it did sort of take me out of Middle-earth. But Elrond, Durin, and Disa's chemistry was always there to bring me back in.
But then, one night it struck me that I would be only too happy to hear any judgment, so long as it granted me the opportunity to have but one more conversation with my father.
I buy their friendship, even though they recognize each other as potential rivals, and their fathers have set them on opposing paths.
There is something more at work.
Good, my son.
I knew it was Mithril all along, and I suppose that Elrond breaking his oath
And the power of this stone will doom you and your kin to sorrow to your last day on this Middle Earth.
is going to explain why he was so sure that Arwen would be miserable in Middle-earth. Again, keeping to the theme of a fatherly role, but Elrond's strong opposition to Arwen marrying Aragorn was a movie creation. This series doesn't claim to be a prequel for those films, It seems the showrunners are far more cunning with their creative liberties than anyone has given them credit for, and it is entertaining to be surprised by something new every week.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Entertainment was, of course, the second consideration of Tolkien. The first was that his work be beautiful and true, as only myth can be. This show is visually stunning, and thus far it doesn't seem like it is contradicting the truth Tolkien has tried to convey. So for now, I'll accept these showrunners' little tricks in the name of entertainment. Grace under pressure. Oh, Galadriel. It's not that Morfydd Clark is a bad actress, I don't think. I think she was instructed to act like Galadriel is trying to act confident, not that Galadriel actually is confident.
Acting is acting like you're not acting. So act, but don't act like you're acting, get it?
Last episode, she pulled a knife on Elendil to get what she wanted. So quick to resort to violence as a means of asserting her authority is not the act of a confident woman. Rather, we see that role fulfilled in Muriel. This episode, she acts with cool composure and not lowering herself to Galadriel's antics.
In this court, we hear many proposals. I dare say yours is the most surprising and ambitious I've heard in weeks.
Until Galadriel goes too far.
And it will not be quelled by you, Regent.
The theme of fathers carries through with both Kemen and Pharazôn's foil to Miriel and Palantir. Kemen is so eager to live up to his father's reputation.
I was going to say infuriating.
Who we see is an astute classical politician.
Drinks all round!
I think he knows what Rome is. Rome is the mob.
While Muriel is frightened to live up to her father's reputation.
I was chosen to rule in his stead, with a promise to quell the storm.
I like these parallels. Meanwhile, Galadriel has no father. Instead, she gets advice from Halbrand on how to manipulate people.
In an instance like this, it seems to me that you do well to identify what it is that your opponent most fears.
Of which she does too little too late.
I know what it is to be the only one. The only one who sees.
She still needed a literal act of God to get her plan to work. Now that it seems her goal has the blessing of the Valar, it seems like the show is really trying to deflect Sauron's suspicions from Halbrand. First, there's this line.
King or carpenter, the Southlander will face judgment.
A great bit of cacophony. Also, it's worth mentioning that Jesus was both a king and a carpenter put on trial by the Romans, though Halbrand doesn't stand trial at the end of this episode. Make of that what you will. Lastly, there is whatever is going on in the Southlands. Adoptive family. I just knew Arondir was going to have a sweep in and stab the orc in surprise scene. I just thought it was going to come 2 episodes earlier.
Swiftly, lad. They are coming.
He does get to act like an adoptive father to Theo, saving him from being the meat on an orc's menu. And I really do like the scene of Arondir, Bronwyn, and Theo in the field. A great Middle-earth adoptive family, standing up against darkness. Even as the bearer of bad news, Arondir is a beacon of positive masculinity that Tolkien loved to write in his books, while the innkeeper is the perfect Tolkiensian slime ball.
You won't take it. Just like you took that hilt.
He is cut from the same cloth as old Bill Ferny in Bree, whose character did not make it into the Fellowship film. It's nice to see this character type repurposed here. A slimy old man, all too ready to make way for Sauron.
He was lost, but shall return.
Who we're now now all supposed to assume is Meteor Man.
Starfall means his time is near.
Because at this point, who isn't Sauron?
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I will say that correlation is not causation. I rest my case. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you would like to see more. Your patronage is greatly appreciated.